My mom pretended to be sick so I wouldn't leave for college. She was afraid of being alone with my stepdad. But I accidentally overheard their conversation, and the truth was so much worse. When I got the scholarship letter, I thought my whole life was about to change. Full ride. Out of state. My dream university. I remember standing there in the kitchen, holding that envelope like it was a golden ticket, grinning like a fool. My mom, Lisa, smiled too. Wide at first, but it didn't reach her eyes. She clutched the countertop so tight her knuckles turned white. And then she said the words that started everything. "That's amazing, honey. But what about me?" I didn't know what to say. We weren't rich. Hell, we weren't even comfortable. But the scholarship covered everything. Room, board, tuition. I was ready to go. I needed to go. That night, she started coughing. Then came the headaches, the dizzy spells, the I feel weak moments. It escalated fast. Appointments, blood tests, CT scans, doctors scratching their heads. She made me go with her, watch her cry in the exam rooms. Said she was scared. Said she needed me around just a little longer. A week before my move-in date, she had a full-blown collapse in the living room. I called 911, panicking. The ER kept her overnight. Tests again. Nothing. She might be having stress-related episodes, one doctor said. I put college on hold. Just for a semester, I told myself. That's when everything started to unravel. My stepdad, Rick, barely spoke to me unless it was to criticize. You gonna leech off her forever? Or man up and take some responsibility around here? He married my mom when I was 13, after my real dad bailed. Rick was a presence. Cold. Always watching. Always making her shrink a little smaller. The weird part? She never wanted to be alone with him. When I worked late shifts at the gas station, I'd come home and find her sleeping on the couch, lights on, door locked. She said she was scared of break-ins. I believed her. I thought Rick just creep her out. I didn't like him either. But then came that night. It was a Thursday. I came home earlier than usual. Manager let me off an hour ahead. And as I approached the door, I heard voices. They were in the kitchen. The lights were off. I slowed down, instinct kicking in, and stepped softly toward the side of the house where the small window above the sink was cracked open. Mom was laughing, giggling even, something I hadn't heard in a long time. Rick's voice, low and slick, he bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. Then he said something that made the bottom drop out of my stomach. Told you faking the collapse would work. Now he's stuck here. Good boy doesn't want to abandon his sick mom. She laughed again, and I felt something cold and sharp bloom in my chest. She faked it. The dizziness, the tests, the ambulance ride, all of it. And I, like a fool, had canceled college to play nursemaid. But it got worse. So much worse. I stood outside that window for what felt like forever. Frozen. I wanted to believe I heard wrong, that I misunderstood. But then Rick said something else that shattered any doubt. You could have just told him the truth. But no, you had to play the dying mother card. Mom hissed. And have him hate me forever? No way. This way, he stays here willingly. He thinks he's choosing me. Guilt works better than chains. Rick laughed. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then she added something I wish I could unhear. Besides, she said softly, you know how he looks at me. He'd hate me if he knew. And I'm not ready to lose him yet. Rick, you mean our little accident? She didn't respond right away. Then, quietly, it was never an accident. I backed away, my mouth dry. I thought I might throw up. I couldn't sleep that night. I locked my bedroom door for the first time since I was a kid. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, brain spinning. What the hell did she mean? The next day, I skipped work. I needed answers. I searched through drawers, old boxes in the basement, anything I could find. Mom kept everything. Every bill, medical form, old notebooks from when I was in elementary school. Eventually, I found an envelope labeled, "Legal, do not throw away." Inside were old court papers. From 2009, custody hearings. Names I hadn't heard in years. One stuck out, Cameron Walker. My father, but he wasn't listed as the petitioner. Lisa Walker was. It said she had filed a restraining order against him, accused him of abuse, claimed she needed full custody. Only, in the margins of the paperwork, there were handwritten notes. My mother's handwriting. Judge bought it. Used the bruises from Rick's fight. Timing worked perfectly. Cameron can never know. My breath caught in my throat. My real dad didn't leave. He was pushed out. Set up. And Rick? She'd known him back then. He wasn't some new guy who swooped in to save her. He was the bruises. The evidence. The plan. She used him to get rid of my father. Then married him. I confronted her that night. I had the papers in my hand. My hand was shaking. What's this? I asked, voice raw. She turned white. Rick wasn't home. I found them in the basement. Care to explain? She stammered. It's complicated. No, it's criminal. You lied to the court. You framed my dad. She started crying. I didn't care. I gave up everything for you. College. My future. And all this time, it was just manipulation. You pretended to be sick to keep me here. I had to. I was scared. Bullsh asterisk T. I shouted. You weren't scared. You were playing me like a puppet. Then she said the one thing that made my skin crawl. I did it because I love you. That's when the door opened. Rick walked in. He saw the papers in my hand. Her red face. My posture. And he smiled. You told him, didn't you? I bolted out of the house and didn't come back that night. I went to sleep in my friend Devin's garage, curled up in the back seat of his car with my hoodie as a pillow. Every part of me hurt. Not physically, but in that raw, violated way when your entire childhood collapses overnight. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew one thing for damn sure. They were going to regret what they did to me. This wasn't over. Not even close. I stayed with Devin for the next 2 days. He didn't ask too many questions. Just handed me a blanket, tossed me a spare key, and let me crash. That's the thing about real friends. They sense when to shut the hell up and when to be present. He only asked one thing the morning after I showed up looking like a ghost. You okay? I shook my head. He just nodded and said, whatever it is, man, burn it down when you're ready. That stuck with me. My phone blew up with texts from my mom. Please come home. Let's talk. I did what I had to do. You're my son. Don't throw your life away over this. Please. I'm sorry. You don't understand what your father was like. He would have taken you from me. I didn't answer. She called. Dozens of times. Rick didn't message once. That silence from him was worse than anything. I needed information. More than just a stack of manipulated court documents. So I did something I never dared to do before. I searched for my real father. It wasn't hard. Cameron Walker. Turns out, he'd moved only a few hours away. Started a new family. I found a Facebook profile with a different last name, but the photos were unmistakable. Same eyes. Same damn smile I saw in the mirror growing up. I sent him a message. I didn't know what to say, so I just wrote, Hi, my name is Jake. I think you might be my father. Can we talk? I didn't expect a reply. Not soon, anyway. But within 10 minutes, I got this back. Jake, is this real? I've been looking for you for years. I swear to God. My hand was shaking so hard I dropped the phone. We arranged to meet in a small town diner the next day. Cameron was already there when I arrived. He stood up the moment he saw me. His eyes welled up, and he couldn't speak for a second. Neither could I. He looked older, sure. Grayer hair. Tired around the eyes. But something about him felt safe. Solid. When we finally sat, the first thing he said was, Your mother took you from me. I nodded. I thought you left. She made me look like a monster. Claimed I hit her. That I scared you. That you didn't want to see me. She used bruises from someone else, I said quietly. He blinked fast. I could see the emotions behind his eyes. Years of confusion. Pain. Rage. I'll try to boil up, but keep calm. For my sake. She kept me away for 14 years, Jake, he whispered. I sent letters. Tried to fight for custody. The court threw me out. We sat in silence for a while. My throat felt like sandpaper. Then he said something I'll never forget. You came to find me. That means the world. When I got back to Devin's place that night, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't just going to run from them. I was going to expose them. All of it. Operation Burn, everything began that night. I went back home while they were out. Used the key I'd never returned. I recorded everything. The court documents, my mom's journal entries, even some receipts that showed her faking prescriptions during her illness. I took photos, videos, created a hidden Google Drive, and dumped everything in there. And then I got smart. I installed a small voice recorder under the dining room table. It was discreet, cheap, picked up everything. I needed them to talk. I needed proof, not just for me, but for the world. Then I texted my mom. "You're right. We should talk." She replied instantly. "I'll make dinner tonight. Just the three of us. Please come home." Perfect. I was walking into the lion's den. But this time, I had a lighter in my pocket and gasoline in my blood. That night, I stood outside the house for a solid 5 minutes before going in. The lights inside glowed like nothing had ever happened. Like this was just another family dinner. Like my entire childhood hadn't just been exposed as one giant lie. I had the recorder running in my pocket too. I didn't want to rely on just the one under the table. Redundancy, right? When I walked in, Mom smiled like everything was normal. She had on makeup, nice earrings, her hair done up like she was trying too hard. Rick was sitting at the table with a beer, wearing a smug little smirk. Like he knew something. "Hey, Jake," Mom said cheerily. "I made your favorite, lasagna." I sat down across from them without a word. She served me a big slice like I was 10 years old again. "So," she started, "I know we've all been tense, but I think we just need to air things out. No judgment, just honesty." I nodded. She looked relieved. She really thought I was here to forgive her. Rick leaned back, arms crossed, watching me like a snake waiting for a twitch. I had to bite my tongue to stop from spitting on the floor. She started slow. "I know you found some things, and I want to explain." "You mean the forged court documents?" I said calmly. She flinched but recovered fast. "I did what I had to do. Your father was what? Innocent? A decent man? Someone you used and threw away." "Don't raise your voice," Rick muttered. I ignored him. "You kept my father from me for 14 years. You lied to everyone, and you tricked me into staying by faking a medical condition." "Because I had to," she shouted. "You don't know what it's like being afraid." "Afraid of what?" I snapped. "Of Rick? Of what he'd do to you if I left." That shut her up. For a second. Then Rick leaned forward. "You little ingrate," he said. "We gave you everything. Food, shelter. You think the world owes you just because you got into college. You manipulated me," I said. "And you're going to pay for it." "Oh yeah," he said with a grin. "You going to cry to the cops?" "No," I said, standing up. "I already have everything I need. I recorded this conversation, just like I recorded the others." His face twisted. "You little." My mom stood too. "Jake, don't do this." "It's done," I said. "You wanted honesty? Here's some. I'm pressing charges for fraud. I'm sending copies to the court. And by the way, I met Dad." That hit her like a slap. "He knows everything now. About the lies. About the fake abuse. About you." I left before Rick could swing. I wanted him to try. Just once. But he didn't. He just stared at me with those beady eyes like he wished I'd never been born. Too late for that. The next morning, I sent the files to a family law attorney I found through a legal aid clinic. He looked through them and said something that gave me chills. "There's a real chance we can get your father's custody rights reinstated retroactively. But more importantly, this is enough to open an investigation into parental alienation and perjury. Your mother could face charges." I nodded. "I want that." Later that day, I got a call. It was my mom. I didn't answer. Then she texted, "You really want to destroy me, Jake?" "Yes," I replied. "I do." The day the legal papers were served was strangely quiet. I expected chaos, screaming, threats. Instead, I got silence. Deafening, heavy silence. Mom didn't call. Rick didn't show up at my job. Nothing. It was like they both had retreated into some bunker, hoping I'd go away. But I wasn't going anywhere. My lawyer, a pit bull of a woman named Monroe, told me the documents hit hard. Fraud, perjury, emotional abuse, parental alienation. The whole package. She said it wouldn't be easy, but it was real. She believed in the case. The best part? My father had joined the motion. We were filing together, side by side. 2 weeks later, I got a voicemail from my mom. Not Rick. Not even her voice, full of fake tears. Just one sentence, flat and hollow. "You're going to regret this." I played it on loop 5 times, then sent it to Monroe. She laughed. "Thanks, that's intimidation. Adds to the case." When a hearing day came, I walked into the courtroom with Cameron beside me. He wore a blue suit, clean shave, nervous as hell, but he showed up. I hadn't seen him cry until the judge called our names together. The clerk said Cameron Walker and Jake Walker, petitioners, and something in him cracked. He leaned down and whispered, "I never stopped being your dad." My throat clenched, but I just nodded. I couldn't speak. Not yet. My mother was there too. She looked smaller. No makeup. Hair pulled back. A tight black dress like she was going to a funeral. Rick sat next to her, arms crossed, chewing gum like a punk. His suit was wrinkled. He looked pissed. No surprise. Her lawyer opened with a classic move, painting her as a struggling, desperate mother who acted out of fear. Said she was manipulated by Rick into doing whatever was necessary to keep her child. Rick scoffed out loud at that. Then our lawyer stood up. Monroe was ice and fire. She read from the forged custody documents, played audio from our family dinner, even quoted my mom's exact words from the hidden recording. Hook, line, and sinker. It was never an accident. Guilt works better than chains. I watched the judge's face slowly drop into disgust. Rick was next to testify. This is when things really went to hell. He walked up to the stand like he owned it. He grinned the whole time, until Monroe showed the court a timeline of his criminal history. Turns out Rick had priors, a few DUIs, an assault charge, and one sealed juvenile record that the judge could consider under these circumstances. It involved domestic violence. And then Monroe said, "Your Honor, we have reason to believe Mr. Rick Palmer may have been involved in coercing Ms. Walker to manipulate legal records, and we're filing a separate complaint for witness tampering and obstruction of justice." Rick lost it, started yelling, red in the face. Court officers surrounded him and forced him to sit down. The judge turned to my mother and asked, point blank, "Were you coerced into falsifying these documents?" She opened her mouth, closed it, looked down, and said no. That was the nail in her coffin. When it was my turn to speak, I told the truth. Every broken promise, every fake illness, the stolen chance at college, the lies about my father, the manipulation. And I ended with this. I love my mother. I thought she was sick. I gave up my dreams for her. But all she wanted was control. And all he wanted was silence. I looked straight at Rick. I'm done being silent. The judge didn't rule that day. Said it would take time. But something had already shifted. I was no longer just a kid. I was the storm now. And they had no idea what was coming. 2 days after court, Rick left the house. Packed up in the middle of the night. Didn't leave a note. Didn't even slam the door. Just gone. My mom called me the next morning, sobbing. He left. He's gone. He said I was dead to him. Jake, please, I didn't mean for any of this. I was scared. I didn't respond. I just blocked the number. I wasn't going to let her weaponize guilt again. I'd spent years drowning in it, tying my life to her moods, her illnesses, her sob stories. She had trained me to drop everything if she so much as whimpered. Never again. The news spread faster than I expected. Family friends started reaching out, people I hadn't seen in years. One aunt messaged me on Facebook. I always wondered why we weren't allowed to talk to your dad. One of my old teachers emailed, "You were one of the brightest students I ever had. I'm sorry you missed your chance at college. I hope you get it back." That hit me hard, because that dream, the one I'd buried in my chest when I unpacked my college bags, it wasn't dead. It was just waiting. Monroe helped me submit a victim impact statement for the family court case, and also referred me to a civil lawyer. We were suing for emotional damages and lost opportunities, including financial compensation for the year of college I missed. You know what my mom did when she found out? She tried to file a restraining order, claimed I was harassing her with legal action. The judge tossed it immediately, said she was misusing the system again. Then came the wildest part. I got a call from the admissions office of a university I was supposed to attend. The woman on the line, Ms. Hernandez, said something that made me sit down. "We've reviewed your case and the documentation you submitted. We're offering you a deferred reentry with the same scholarship you originally earned. You can start this coming semester." I stared at the wall for what felt like 10 full minutes. Then I said, yes, absolutely yes. I moved out of Devin's garage that weekend and into a shared apartment near campus. Cameron helped me with the security deposit. When I hugged him goodbye that day, I felt something break loose inside me, a knot I didn't even know I'd been carrying. It felt like healing, but just when I thought the worst was over, something else happened. A message, anonymous email, no subject line, just 2 words, Check basement. That's it. No sender. No name. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I shouldn't have gone, but I did. I went back to the house late that night. My old key still worked. The house was dark, silent. My mother was probably gone, maybe staying with a relative or off somewhere licking her wounds. The basement door creaked louder than I remembered. The air was thick, musty, cold. I flicked on the light and went down. Everything looked the same. Old boxes, water heater, dust. Then I saw it. A shoebox in the corner I hadn't noticed before. Taped shut, marked with one word, private. I opened it, and everything I thought I knew cracked open again. Inside were photographs, hundreds of them. Me as a kid, my mom, Rick. But they weren't normal. Some were taken through windows, from doorways, from behind furniture. They were hidden photos, some dated years ago, others recent. Then I found the receipts. Cameras, recorders, bugging equipment, purchased under Rick's name. There was even a notebook filled with notes, observations, times I came home, people I talked to, when I slept, when I showered. My skin crawled. Rick hadn't just manipulated me. He'd watched me, like prey. I took everything and brought it to Monroe. She stared at the photos in silence for a long time. Then she said, "This isn't over. Not even close." Monroe didn't waste a second. Within 24 hours of seeing the basement box, she had filed for an emergency injunction and contacted the police. She even reached out to a private investigator she trusted, an ex-FBI guy named Lawrence who walked and talked like he could end a man's life with a stapler. Lawrence took one look at the notebook and said, "This is stalking. Obsession level. He's been documenting your life in detail." I felt sick. "Why?" I asked. Monroe answered without blinking. "Control. Men like that don't stop until someone stops them." Rick hadn't just disappeared. He'd gone underground. We found out later he sold his car 2 towns over, paid cash for a burner phone, and hadn't touched a credit card in weeks. But what really chilled me was what Monroe said next. People like Rick don't just run. They watch. I was being watched. Still, the police opened a criminal case for stalking and unlawful surveillance. The photos, the notes, even a receipt for a motion-sensing camera that had been pointed at my bedroom window from the neighbor's abandoned shed. The police found it still powered on. I wasn't paranoid anymore. I was being hunted. We filed for a restraining order. The judge granted it immediately. That same day, I moved again. Left the apartment. Cameron helped me rent a new place under a different lease, different name. Even my mail got rerouted through a P.O. box. I felt like a fugitive in my own story. Except I hadn't done anything wrong. Rick had, and he was still out there. 3 nights later, it escalated again. It was 2:47 a.m. when I heard it, the softest tap on the window. Not loud, not violent, just deliberate, like someone wanted me to hear it. I stayed frozen in bed, breath held, listening. Another tap, then a shadow moved past the curtains. I didn't look. I just grabbed my phone and called 911. The dispatcher kept me calm while officers arrived. By the time they got there, the window was smeared with something. A handprint, greasy, fresh, too high to be a stray animal. And underneath it, a small piece of paper stuck with tape. 3 words. "You ruined her." That's when I knew. It was Rick. He was blaming me for what happened to my mother. Police patrolled the block that night. I didn't sleep. Next day, I went to Monroe with fire in my eyes. "I want him destroyed," I said. "Publicly. Legally. Whatever it takes." She nodded. "Then it's time we go nuclear." Monroe coordinated with the DA's office to press felony charges. Stalking. Surveillance without consent. Emotional harassment. Contributing to fraudulent testimony in a custody case. But the key would be the court of public opinion. She helped me draft a statement. Not a Reddit post. Not a tweet. A full expose. Everything. What my mother did. What Rick did. The lies. The recordings. The photos. The manipulation. The sabotage. The stalking. And when we published it on every platform, we included names. Rick Palmer. Lisa Walker. Attached were official police documents. Legal filings. Audio clips. Photos of the handwritten notes. Even video from a hearing. It exploded. Within 72 hours, a true crime podcast contacted me. My high school issued a statement condemning past abuse experienced by a former student. Rick's old employer, a construction company, released a statement saying he would never be welcomed back. A local news station requested an interview. But best of all, someone recognized Rick. Sent in a tip. He'd been working under the table at a tire shop out in the sticks. Paid cash, living in a trailer behind the garage. The cops picked him up that night. When they called me, they said, he didn't even resist. Just looked at the ground and said, took you long enough. He's in jail now, awaiting trial. My mom? She disappeared from the public eye. No one's heard from her in weeks. But something tells me she's watching too. Waiting. Because people like that, they never admit defeat. They just reload. 2 weeks after Rick's arrest, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single piece of paper, folded twice, and the handwriting was instantly familiar. My mother's. There were only 4 words. I was protecting you. I read it 5 times. Then I laughed. It wasn't a joke, but it was pathetic. There's a special kind of cruelty in people like her. The ones who harm you with a smile. Who wrap abuse in the illusion of love, and then cry victim when the mask slips. I didn't respond. Instead, I gave the letter to Monroe, who added it to the civil suit for emotional and educational damages. By now, I wasn't just pushing back. I was building a bonfire out of every lie they ever told. But here's where it got interesting again. Remember the voice recorder I put under the dining room table? It had picked up a lot more than just that one dinner. See, I left it running. It was motion activated. So every time someone walked into that room, it started recording, and they never found it. Turns out, after I left, Rick and my mom had a lot of late-night talks. Angry ones. Dangerous ones. One in particular stood out. Monroe played it for me in her office. Rick, you think he won't find out about your sister? Mom, shut up. Rick, you said she was gone. You said he'd never know. Mom, I handled it. Don't bring her into this. Rick, laughing, you handled it? Is that what we're calling it now? I stared at Monroe. Sister. She paused. Jake, did you ever know anyone named Mallory? The name meant nothing. I shook my head. She opened a file and handed me a scanned copy of a birth certificate. Mallory Walker, born 2 years before me. Mother, Lisa Walker. Father, Cameron Walker. Same parents. Same everything. Except, Mallory had never existed in my life. Not once. Monroe dug deeper. Turns out, Mallory was born when my parents were still together. She had lived with them for 2 years, a toddler. Then, suddenly, all traces of her vanished. No death certificate. No transfer of custody. No legal adoption. Just gone. That's when the theory hit me like a punch in the gut. What if my mother gave her away? I asked. Or worse, what if she was taken? Monroe was quiet. But Lawrence, the ex-FBI guy, wasn't. She either sold that child off, or she covered something up so deep it scared even Rick. He knows about it. That's leverage. We brought the tape to the DA. They reopened a dormant child welfare investigation from 18 years ago. One Lisa had wriggled out of with the help of Rick's father, a now-deceased attorney with shady records. Suddenly, the story wasn't just mine anymore. It was Mallory's too. A sister I never knew I had. A victim before me. 2 days later, the local news ran the story. Family at center of stalking scandal, now linked to missing child case. My mom was cornered. And finally she cracked. She showed up at the courthouse without a lawyer. Unannounced. No makeup. No smile. No mask. She walked straight into Monroe's office, where I just happened to be going over trial dates. I want to talk to my son, she said. Monroe looked at me. I said, let her. She sat across from me. Didn't touch the water. Didn't look at me. Just stared at her hands, shaking. Then she said, she was my mistake. I didn't blink. She was loud. Always screaming. Cameron couldn't take it. I was drowning. When he left, I snapped. I just snapped. My cousin offered to take her. No papers. No courts. Just gone. You gave her away? I said, voice trembling. She nodded. She didn't even cry when I left. I stood. Monroe stood. My mother? She stayed sitting. And for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I saw her as she really was. A coward with a crown made of lies. I didn't say another word. Just walked out. Mallory became my new mission. I had found the truth. Now I wanted to find her. I didn't sleep the night I found out about Mallory. I lay awake thinking about what could have happened to her, who she was, where she went, whether she even knew she had a brother out there, a brother who was ready to go scorched earth just to see her face. Monroe got the paperwork moving fast. Lawrence activated contacts in state and interstate child services, even reached out to adoption records offices using what little we had, name, birth date, and the name of Lisa's cousin. Turns out that cousin had died 7 years ago from a drug overdose. But the address led us to a small, rural town in Indiana. One of the oldest mail forwarding services there had a record from over 15 years ago, a temporary guardian filing for a child named Mallory Lynn. Last name changed. No further records after that. Lawrence pulled some serious strings. I'm not supposed to know how, but 3 days later, I had a name. Mallory Jensen. Living in Ohio. Adopted at age 3. She was 20 now. I stared at her social media for an hour before I messaged her. She looked just like me. Same dark eyes. Same angular chin. She had posted about photography, hiking, cats. There was something pure in her smile that broke me. I didn't send a long message. Just this. Hi, my name is Jake Walker. I think we might be siblings. I know this sounds crazy, but I've spent the last few months uncovering a whole web of lies, and I believe you were taken from my family when we were babies. If you want proof, or even just to talk, I'm here. No pressure. She didn't answer that day, or the next. Then, on the third night, my phone buzzed. Jake, I've been waiting for this. We met 2 weeks later in a coffee shop halfway between our cities. I knew her the moment she walked in, the way she scanned the room, the way her mouth did that half-nervous, half-defiant curl. Hi, she said. Hi. She sat down and immediately said, I always felt like something was missing. My adoptive parents were good people, but there was always a gap, an ache I couldn't explain. I showed her photos, our birth certificates, the court records, the audio clips of our mother talking about her. She didn't cry. I did. She just reached across the table, grabbed my hand, and said, You're my brother. We talked for 4 hours. Then she said something that made me stop breathing. She tried to contact me. Once. Years ago. She said she was my mother and wanted to reconnect. I ignored it. I didn't feel safe. Lisa? I asked. She nodded. I didn't reply. But she sent a picture. It was you. A little boy standing in a Spider-Man hoodie. I remember that photo. I was 6. She said your name was Jake, and that you missed me. I blinked through tears. I never even knew you existed. She smiled, soft and bittersweet. I guess now you do. Monroe helped us prepare an official sibling reunion affidavit, and Mallory agreed to testify if needed, especially about the attempt to contact Lisa had made, which proved Lisa knew where she was, but never told anyone. It added weight to the fraud case, to the emotional damages claim, and it made something else clear. Lisa's lies spanned 2 generations. She didn't just ruin my life. She stole both of us from each other. The media picked up the update. Missing sibling reunited after 18 years of silence. Mother faces new allegations in custody fraud case. Ohio woman identified as child given away without legal process. It spread like fire. My inbox exploded. Thousands of messages. Support. Rage. Sympathy. And, from some dark corners, hate. But I didn't care. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't alone. I had my sister. And we were going to make sure justice was no longer just an idea. One hearing remained. The sentencing. Rick. Lisa. Both to stand before a judge and hear what the system thought of their decades-long reign of manipulation. And I was ready, because revenge isn't always fire and fists. Sometimes it's a spotlight and a microphone. The courtroom was full that day. Not just family, not just lawyers, but strangers, journalists, people from the neighborhood, people who'd followed the story online, people who came to see how monsters get carved down to size. I walked in with Mallory beside me. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Her hand gripped mine, firm and steady, like she'd been doing it her whole life. Rick was already seated in an orange jumpsuit, chained at the wrists. He didn't look at me, didn't look at anyone, just stare at the table in front of him. Lisa sat 3 chairs away, dressed plainly, hair tied back, no makeup. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, maybe weeks. But it was the first time I saw her with no performance. No spin, just hollow. The judge called us forward. This wasn't a trial anymore. This was sentencing. The prosecutor laid it all out: fraud, manipulation, stalking, illegal surveillance, emotional abuse, perjury. Everything. Every lie. Every bruise on our minds. Then it was my turn to speak. Victim impact statement. I stood, took the paper out of my pocket, unfolded it with shaking fingers, and didn't read a word of it. Instead, I looked at Lisa, then at Rick, and I said, "You didn't just lie. You rewrote my childhood. You made me believe my dad didn't love me. You made me choose between guilt and freedom. And when I finally broke free, you followed me into the dark." I looked at Rick. "You tried to break me. You stalked me. You watched me while I slept. But I'm still here." I turned to the judge. "And I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for justice. Not just for me, for the sister I never got to grow up with. For the father you ripped out of my life. For the kid who gave up his future because his mother pretended to be dying." I paused. "Your Honor, I hope the court shows more mercy than they ever did." Then I sat down, and the courtroom went dead silent. The judge didn't take long. Rick Palmer, 8 years for stalking and unlawful surveillance. 2 years for obstruction and aiding perjury. No parole for the first 5. Lifetime restraining order. Lisa Walker, 3 years for filing false reports, perjury, and custodial interference. Ordered to pay restitution. Permanently stripped of parental rights. Banned from contacting me or Mallory ever again. After the hearing, Mallory and I stood on the courthouse steps side by side. Cameron, our father, joined us. He was crying. He didn't even try to hide it. We held each other for a long time. A whole life's worth of lost birthdays, holidays, questions, all pressed together in one broken, beautiful moment. The press took photos. I didn't care. Let them tell the world what real survival looks like. It's been 6 months now. Rick's locked away. Lisa's behind bars. Mallory and I talk every day. We're building something together. A nonprofit for people who've suffered from parental alienation and legal manipulation. Turns out there are a lot of us. I'm back in school. Full scholarship reinstated. And every time I walk past the campus library, I remember that moment I gave it all up for a lie, and how I reclaimed it with the truth. So yeah, my mom pretended to be sick so I wouldn't leave for college, because she was afraid of being alone with Rick. But the truth? She wasn't afraid of being alone. She was afraid of being exposed. And now the whole world sees her for what she really is.